Welcome back, everyone. This is Mr. H, your fine arts teacher. And what I wanted to show you is how to continue with this drawing that we did in our last video, but making it into something that shows more advanced skills. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create objects that are stacked on top of each other, objects that pierce through another object and come out on the other side, interior spaces and windows, and that way you can show even more complex details in two-point perspective. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create an object that is stacked on top of this one. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make it go up until it hits the underside of this object. It's going to go into a hole in this object and come out on the other side. So the first trick that we're going to use is the same technique that we used to draw this object. So what we'll do is we'll have a straight up and down line that starts somewhere within the top of this object. I'm not going to be touching either of these lines when I'm drawing this line, and I'm going to make it go up until it comes and stops somewhere on the underside of this other object. And just like I talked about down here, I'm not going to touch these lines with this straight up and down line. So I'll put my pencil tip somewhere on this top. I'm going to adjust my ruler so that I do have that even gap at the bottom of the ruler. Therefore, I know my pencil line is going to be straight up and down or super close to it. And I'm going to draw that line until I get all the way up to the underside of the other rectangular form. And remember, I wanted to stop before I got to these lines. So that's the equivalent of this line right here. It's the front corner of, we'll call it a pillar. And then what I'll also do is I'm going to make that come out from above this rectangular form right here. So I line back up my ruler, and I'm going to make that line go up here as well, because this is going to be the object that's pierced. So this is that pillar coming out on the other side. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to create the step twos. So two lines that go towards my right and left vanishing point. And they're going to come from this corner down here. They're going to come from right here, but there's going to be a third set up here as well. So, put my pencil tip at the bottom of that vertical line, sliding my ruler up to it, rotating it until I get to my right-hand vanishing point, and I'm going to draw this line as long as I want to make it go, but I want to have it stop before I get to that line right there. I'm going to do the same thing over here as well. So putting my pencil tip against the top of that straight up and down line, adjusting my ruler until I get to my right vanishing point, and then drawing the same length of line. So I want to make it look like my pillar is the same thickness all the way. Okay, so I'm not making it go super wide compared to down here. Then I'll do the same thing at the top, where it came out above that other rectangular form. I'm trying to make it look like the pillar is equal in width for the lines that I'd given myself right here. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to our left vanishing point. We're going to have a line that goes this way, and this way towards that left vanishing point. So I'll put my pencil tip at the bottom of that vertical line again, slide my ruler up to it, rotate until I get to my vanishing point, and draw another short little line. I'll do the same thing from the top of that straight up and down line, putting my ruler up against the pencil, rotating it until I get to my vanishing point, and trying to make the line look like it's going to create the same width as I had created for the bottom, and then doing the same thing up here. Now you'll notice that these angles are all changing. So one thing that students will sometimes do is they'll try to make these angles look the same. You shouldn't do that, because as things get higher up, the angles get heavier. As they get lower down, the angles will get lower. So make sure you're always remembering that rule. If it doesn't go straight up and down, it goes to a vanishing point. Now, the next thing is we're going to draw our step 3. So those are just going to be two more straight up and down lines to complete the back side of that pillar, and then we'll have it continue up here as well. So I'll put my pencil tip against either the bottom or the top, slide my ruler up to it, and adjust my ruler to go straight up and down. And I'm going to connect these two lines. And then I'm going to come from the back, or from the top of that upper rectangular form and connect it up with right there. I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to have the line go like this. So, putting my pencil tip against down here, sliding my ruler up to it, adjusting my ruler so it's straight up and down, and then drawing the line there and there. So at this point, you now have a column that is resting on top of one box, ending right here, but then piercing up above it. To give it the pierced look, though, we're going to do something a little extra. Over here, I'm going to make this line go past the edge of the pillar. I'm not trying to touch all the way to this one, though. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to make my other line that goes to the vanishing point go a little bit longer past the edge of the pillar. And then I'm going to make it go towards this vanishing point over here from where it ended. I'll do the same thing from this corner going towards that vanishing point. So what I've now created is the hole that this pillar is going through in order to come out above that first rectangular object. You can even shade it in a little bit if you want to remind yourself that that's a hole. My last step here is just to erase these lines I would not be able to see. Unless this is a transparent column, we would not see these lines anymore because they're going behind that column. We can do the same thing down here as well. So now we've met two of those requirements that I talked about for what I was going to show you on this demonstration. We have our object that's stacked on top of another object, and we have an object that's piercing another object. So one of the other things I wanted to show you how to do was to create an archway. I think I forgot to mention that before, but we're going to create an archway. So I have the room to create an archway that kind of goes from the top of this pillar and then goes down and ending on top of this rectangular form. So the first step is just going to be to lengthen up this diagonal that goes towards my right vanishing point. And I'm going to stop it somewhere above this rectangular form. I'm going to draw another line that's going to go towards this vanishing point, and I want to make my pillar look like it's kind of the same in thickness. So I don't want to draw it from right here and make a really skinny little pillar archway. I don't want to make it from down here and make it really fat. I want to make it somewhere about right here so that it looks like it's the same thickness the whole way. Do you have to do that? No, I wouldn't mark you down if your pillar got skinny on one area. Now, I'm going to erase this little segment of line right here, and that way the archway doesn't have a seam on it right there. And then we're going to go ahead and make the archway, or the side of the archway on the other side. So I'm going to draw a straight up and down line right here. I'm going to draw a straight up and down line right over here. Okay, so we now have an archway almost done, but there's one thing that we're forgetting about. We need to be able to see both sides of this pillar and both the front and the underside of the top of the archway. So what would be incorrect would be to make this line go longer and then make a line right here, because this is the right side and we need to make sure that it doesn't turn into the left side. So we need a right and a left. So what we're going to do is from this corner right here, we're going to draw a line towards that left vanishing point since it's the left side of that pillar that we need. And then we'll make a straight up and down line coming down from there, and then a line that goes towards your right vanishing point. So that's our three-dimensional looking pillar. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you was how to create things like entryways or openings, like windows or holes on an object. So we can put them on any side of any one of these rectangular forms that we want. We could even put them in columns or things like that as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a window on this object and a window over here on this object. So I'm going to do it on the right-hand side of this one. Now, think about a window. The top and bottom of a window go in the same direction as the top and the bottom of a building, typically. So we're going to have two lines on this right-hand side of the object that go towards your right vanishing point. And that way the top and bottom of the windows are going to go in the same direction as the top and bottom of the building. So our first step is that we're going to draw a straight up and down line. Now this could be a door, it could be a window, that's totally up to you. And then we're going to draw those two lines, one from the top and one from the bottom, that go towards that right vanishing point, just like the top and the bottom of this side does. And then we can connect those together with a straight up and down line. Now, one thing you want to think about, and you can see it on these ones that have more extreme changes in size, but as things get further away off into the distance, they get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So if we have this much space on this side of the window, we want to make a smaller amount of space on the other side, and that way we can see that it's getting smaller and smaller and skinnier as it goes off into the distance. So we'll draw a straight up and down line right between here, making sure our ruler is perfectly straight up and down. And you can see that this side is just a little bit skinnier than this side, like I talked about. And that way it makes sense because it's less tall, therefore it should also be less skinny or less wide. All right, now that would be a window for you, or a door. If you want to make it a door, you can make a little doorknob or something like that. If it's a window and you want to see the inside of the window sill, then you could do some lines that kind of show the depth and space before you get to the pane of glass. So the way that you would do that is by having lines that go towards the vanishing point on the opposite side. And what you would want to determine is where you can draw those lines from. So you got four corners here on this window, and you got to ask yourself, could I draw a line towards this vanishing point without leaving the inside of the window? And from this corner, the answer would be no. I'd have to leave this interior space in order to draw a line from this corner towards the towards the left vanishing point. Same thing from down here. I'd have to leave the interior space of that window in order to draw a line going towards the left vanishing point. Why does it go to the left? Well, the top and bottom go towards this vanishing point. So to show space going in the opposite direction, we would need to go towards the opposite vanishing point. Now, asking myself, can I draw a line going from this corner towards this vanishing point without leaving the inside of the window? Yes, I can. So that'll be my first little line that's going to go towards the left vanishing point. If I want it to look really deep, I could draw it longer, but in this case, I'm going to keep it on the shorter side. And then afterwards, I'll go down here and I'll ask myself, can I draw a line going from this corner towards this left-hand vanishing point without leaving the inside of that space? And the answer to that is, again, yes, just like up here. So I'll put my pencil tip against the corner, put my ruler against it, swing that ruler around until I get to my vanishing point, and try to draw a line that looks like the same length as the one that you used above. Now all we have to do is to create the pane of glass. Now the pane of glass would go in the same direction as the outside of the window, so I can draw a straight up and down line here to start with. This is the best way to start, is with the straight up and down line, by the way. And the reason for that is because if you start with the straight up and down line, then the next two steps will be in the exact right place. So I'll draw my line going between them. And then from this corner and this corner that we've just created, we're going to go towards the right-hand vanishing point again, just like the top and the bottom of the window. And I'll go as far as I can until I hit the edge of the windowsill, and I'll stop. I'll do the same thing here. From this corner that we've just created, we're going to go towards that we're going to line up with that vanishing point again, and we're going to go until I get to the edge of the window opening, and then stop. So you've now got your window pane of glass, you've got your window sill and the inside there. If you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you could even create a little bit of shading in there to give it the feeling of that window glass. This is not necessary, it's just if you want to. So it's almost like a tinted window with some reflections in that window. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is how to make a hole in the bottom or top of an object. And it's basically the same skills you learned right here. There just may not be a pillar that blocks your view of it. So start with 2 lines that go towards one vanishing point. So I could go and start making the left, or I could start by making go to the right. Totally up to you what you want to start with. We'll make one over here as well. And then I'm going to connect those lines together with lines that go towards the opposite vanishing point. Now, if this was going to be a trap door or something like that, and you wouldn't see any interior space, you could just leave it as it is. However, if you were wanting to see some interior space, then you could make a straight up and down line coming from this corner. Now, if you make a straight up and down line coming from this corner, you get to decide, do you want it to work like this, where it's going to hit a pane of glass or some sort of a trap door or something like that? Or do you just want to make it go up into that space to show the inside corner of that box? In this case, I'm going to make it do that. So I'll just draw a straight up and down line from this corner, and boom, there's the interior corner of that box. Now I'm going to show you one more time on this object, and guess what? It's the exact same techniques, it's just flipped upside down. You can even visualize that by flipping your paper upside down, and boom, yes, there's the hole in the box instead of the trap door in the underside. Okay, so it's the exact same techniques over. If you get it, you can just do it on your own. You don't have to worry about watching me anymore. So again, we're going to do 4 lines, 2 that go towards one vanishing point, 2 that go towards the other vanishing point. And remember, they have to go towards the vanishing point. That rule still exists. If it doesn't go straight up and down, where does it go to? A vanishing point. And then you can go ahead and make that straight up and down line from that corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like a pool, though, like there's like a swimming pool on top of this object. Do you have to do that? No. It could be done just like this and just look like a hole. Totally your choice. So to make a swimming pool type of a thing, I'm going to draw that straight up and down line, but I'm going to make it shorter. And that's just to represent the corner that you see poking out above the water in your swimming pool. Now, the next thing is I'm going to draw 2 lines that go towards your vanishing points. And that's representing where the water line is in that pool. All right. So that's basically it. Let's say you wanted to do a little diving board or something. Yeah, you could make 2 lines that go towards one vanishing point, 1 line that caps off the end of the diving board. So there's all different sorts of ways that you can build up these skills to create different interesting things. You could use that stacking technique, and you could create a stepped pyramid, for instance, with one big rectangle and then a slightly smaller one and then a slightly smaller one, each one stacked on top of another. So these are skills that you can adapt in a bunch of different ways to create an interesting scene. So as soon as you have got your stacked object, your pierced object, your archway, and at least one interior space, could be this type, this type, this type, whatever you want, as long as you have all of those requirements, you are good to be able to turn in your drawing and be able to get a grade on it for the full credit. Thank you very much, folks. We'll continue with a new demonstration for a new type of 2-point perspective drawing in our next video.